Hi, I'm G, this is my art channel, and in this video I'm sharing my process for drawing a begonia flower. So I set up my reference photo right next to the piece of paper that I'm drawing on, and I am using a Faber-Castell 0.7 B softness pencil to draw this out. And the first thing you can see me do is draw a very light circle that's hopefully going to hold the entire shape of the flower. And then I go straight into the middle and I start to work on the petals in the center and work my way out, from the center, doing petals and petals and petals until I hit the edges. I usually start from the center and work my way out because if I start from the outer edges and work my way towards the center, I might find that I'm having far more proportional issues with petals not being the right sizes, and then the center gets pushed out of whack and everything just goes all crazy. You can see which bit I'm drawing there by just tracing it on the photo, and then I come over and I start drawing this petal. So yeah, so to make it easier on myself, I think I start in the center and work my way out. I've still got to keep a keen eye on the petals though and make sure that they are long enough and that I've got enough room for more of them. And I can already see, having done those two sort of upper petals, that I'm going to probably have to extend the shape of the flower upwards a little bit to give me space for the petals that I can see right at the top. So I'm working sort of gently and slowly upwards and outwards, trying to draw the shapes of some of these petals. And what I will start to do is use the petals I've already drawn as a kind of reference, and some of those lines coming off those to help me try and draw and proportion the other petals correctly. So, basically your drawing is reacting to your drawing as you go along. And I will sort of look and stop and kind of plot and, using the pencil like a pointer to try and figure out where things are supposed to go. I'm looking at the flower here. You can see me just do a couple of faint pencil lines down so I know that the edge of that petal is aligned with the petal that is below it, that one in the center that I've already drawn. So I know how wide that petal had to be. So that's what I mean. Having drawn one of the petals already, I can use that to try and help me gauge how big or how small or whereabouts some of those other petals need to be. And again, you can just see me drawing through a petal on the photo there, so I know where it appears behind another one. And again, you can see me looking at the petal that I drew in the center, a line sort of coming off that, and that forms the bottom edge of a petal that I'm about to draw. And again, you can see me looking at petals I've already drawn, drawing a faint line down so I know where that petal at the bottom is going to appear from behind another one. So yeah, there's a danger with, always comparing everything to what you've already drawn, because I'm sure that I read somewhere that the more you concentrate on a drawing, the bigger your drawing starts to get and the more out of proportion your drawing starts to get. So if you're constantly just relying on things you've already drawn, yes, there's probably quite a big likelihood that you can go out of proportion with things. But I'm thinking it's a small scale, and I'm also working very, very lightly with this pencil. So if there are any mistakes and if there are any sort of bits that I've got to push a little bit, it's not such a big deal. If I was doing something very, very accurate on a much bigger scale, then I would probably use a grid on the picture and a grid on the paper or the canvas in order to try and get it as accurate as possible. I probably wouldn't rely on just my sort of hand-eye and, sort of a few little comparisons to bits I've already drawn. I would be looking at a more kind of foolproof way of getting it right. But like I said, this is small scale, so I'm doing okay at the moment. And also, I like the test of, having a look carefully at the picture and comparing things and trying to make sure that everything is proportioned, looking at stuff I've already drawn. It's also going to mean that it's not going to be completely super accurate. It's going to be pretty good, but not as accurate as, using another method to make sure it's absolutely photographically done. What I'm pointing out there is the fact that usually, because I'm right-handed, I work from left to right, but for some reason the drawing has organically grown into me doing all of the stuff on the right-hand side first. So of course there's always the kind of danger that I might smudge what I've already done because it's on the right-hand side and I've got to go back over to the left now to start drawing stuff. And it's not kind of the way I planned it, it's just the way it kind of grew organically, artistic decisions as I was drawing it. But anyway, now I've got to have a look at some of these other petals and work my way over towards the left and hopefully not smudge it too much. So again, I'm using some guidelines there. I'm using petals I've already drawn and using those to draw lines downwards or maybe curved lines around in order to try and figure out where some of these other petals need to go. And remember, I'm able to keep this nice and loose and light because I'm using a B softness pencil anyway, so I don't have to press down too hard to get quite a good pencil line on there. But it's also really nice and light, so if there's any mistakes, I can rub them out really easily. And what I tend to try and do, and you'll see on this video, is I tend to okay, I rubbed a bit out there, but what I tend to try and do is draw the entire thing first with as little use of the rubber as possible, and then I try. That's not what you're seeing right now, I know, but what I try to do is leave all the kind of revisions to the end. And there's quite a big chunk on this video. Once I have done basically the whole flower, I then have a look at tweaking things, making some petals, bigger, shorter, fatter, wider, or whatever. But you'll see that towards the end of this video. So you can see me drawing yet another guideline down so that I can get the right length of that petal. That petal is not going to jut out too much. And then that helps me draw this next one, which I know has to come outwards, swing downwards, overlap, and then shoot up here towards the center where it sort of converges with a couple of the other petals. I've never drawn a begonia before. I didn't even know it was begonia before somebody pointed it out to me. It's a terrific flower though, and all of those petals and the way that they're growing and the colors of them, I just thought looked absolutely brilliant. And I've done a yellow flower before, and I've done a red flower and an orange flower before, but I've never done one that kind of had all three of those colors in it, and that was what attracted me to this, as well as this big fat petals that I was having a look at as well. So this is a drawing that's going to become a painting. So here you can see me just trace a little bit of a pencil line outwards there, like a horizontal, and I know that that's where a petal that I'm drawing here has to curve back inwards, where it's going to meet another petal coming out and overlapping it. So I'm using those little guidelines, using sort of guidelines that I draw through, construction lines as I call them, but also just little dots of the pencil and little dashes sometimes, just to make sure that I'm going to have things in the right place. And I'm also getting a little bit fussy as well as I go along. Me, fussy? No, it must be somebody else's video. And I'm just rubbing out and tweaking a few little things as I go along as well. I've got most of the basic flower done now. It's just a couple more petals to go. And what I'm realizing and watching this video is how much easier it is when I got a reference photo right next to me that I can draw on and sketch on and put lines on, because sometimes I'm working from an iPad image right in front of me and I can't really do those things on that, whereas having it right next to you is quite a bonus. So if you do struggle to do your drawings from a reference photo, print it out, stick it right next to you, and don't be afraid to draw on it, put little lines and guidelines all over it if they help you actually do the drawing. So with the basic drawing done, now I can afford to be a little bit fussier. I've speeded this up a little bit as you see me make some small corrections to the work. And this is easy because the whole thing is pretty much drawn. So now all I have to do is compare my drawings and my shapes to the reference photo on the left-hand side. So where I can see something needs to jut out more, I can do that. Where I can see something is too angular, I can sort of curve it and then gently rub out and make it a bit lighter. And that's pretty much all you have to do at this point. And this takes about 3 or 4 minutes in real time, where I'm just having a look, I'm just being fussy about some bits and trying to tweak them and change them. I think the main thing was that some of those petals near the top, they needed to be a little bit wider and a little bit bigger, because I'd drawn them a bit too squat to try and make sure that I was going to fit them in against the top of the frame that I'd drawn. So you can see me there going, oh, it doesn't matter, I've got to make them bigger, because otherwise the flower is very much really big towards the base, and the petals above were not quite big enough, not bold enough. So that's what you can see me doing there, is just tweaking those so that those petals are a little bit better proportioned when I compare them to everything else in the image. So as I redraw lines after having rubbed bits out and corrections and so on, I've still got to be fairly careful I don't do them too heavily, because my idea is to paint this using watercolors, and I want the colors to form the kind of edges between each petal. I don't want heavy pencil lines to do that. So as I'm pressing down fairly hard here, I'm also in the back of my mind thinking I'm probably going to go over this entire pencil drawing with a soft rubber once I think it's all done, so I can take some of those pencil lines down and make them very, very faint before I start to paint. So that's the penciling out pretty much done. Let me know in the comments below if it was useful to you. And in the next video, you should be able to watch me actually painting and completing the begonia flower. So to make sure you don't miss that, don't forget to subscribe, share, and also like the videos. And you might want to check out one of my previous drawing videos as well. I'll pop some links down below for some other flowers that I've done drawing tutorials for.